Creativity. For a lot of people, it can be a little strange. See, most of us don't have a really strong relationship with creativity. And because of that, when people show up and they're being super creative, they can have kind of a weird reaction to it, right? People can think, we're going to keep an eye on this one. I know what that's like because I've been a creative my whole life. And I've gotten used to that. And it's okay because I actually love that I've been a creative my whole life. It's opened up so many possibilities for me in my life. And it really started as a child. When I was very young, my parents saw me drawing and they really encouraged me to just keep doing it, right? And so I just kept at it and I kept getting better and better and practicing. And eventually I realized you could go to school for that. And then in school, I realized you could actually have a career and a profession in that. And that's what I did. I had a whole career and a whole profession around being a creative person. Started off as a designer, became an animator, director. I became a chief marketing officer in my late 20s. Finally founded my own agency. Ran that for 22 years, sold that a couple years ago, and now I get to do it as a growth coach. Still leaning into my curiosity and creativity to help other people grow their businesses. And I've been able to do it with so many cool companies, right? Dunkin' Brands, Orange Theory Fitness, Aveda, SAP, Kathy Ireland, and even 3 stints as a creative director working with the Imagineers at Disney's Epcot Center. Like I said, it's been a really fun ride being a creative person in this life. But I want you to know something about creativity, that for me, it's not just paintbrushes and pixels. There's more to it than that. See, I've been able to integrate creativity in my life in many, many ways that I hadn't really realized until I really started thinking about it recently. And I want to share with you a story about one of those moments where creativity really changed my life. So it was 2011. I'd had my agency for 10 years already. And I found myself here in Positano, Italy. So I had finally gotten into EO. I cracked the $1 million mark and finally made my way here. And I was here on the last day of a cruise. And if you've ever been to Positano, like I did, it's an easy place to fall in love with. And I did that day. And, everything from the cafes with making the cappuccinos. And I heard this tapping sound. And then we were in this piazza right here. And I looked over the wall and I saw this guy. He's making sandals for his shop that day by hand. It was really just this magical, magical place that I just absolutely fell in love with. And I was standing there with Lisa and I was like, oh man, we got to get back on the bus, but I can't wait to come back here. And that's when it hit me. And I really what I felt all of a sudden was frustration. See, I knew that even though I'd made this $1 million business, that business owned and controlled me. It wasn't giving me the kind of freedom to really come back and enjoy places like this the way I really wanted to. And so in those moments where I feel a little frustrated and I was feeling a little sorry for myself and wanting to say, why me? What I've always realized is in those moments are great opportunities to instead say, what if? See, in that moment, I realized I could actually create something here. And I grabbed Lisa's hand and I turned to her and I said, hey, you know what? What if we came back here in 10 years and we just spent a few weeks here enjoying this place? And then what if at the end of those few weeks, I could take you to this exact spot and ask you one question? What if we spent another few weeks here? See, I knew if I could ask that one question, I will have built a business that would have generated the kind of freedom that I was really looking for in life, to have the things and experiences that I really wanted in life. And I went out and I did that. From that one moment, I carried forward and made all sorts of decisions, all framed inside of that what if question. I built that business to be able to be on the Inc. 5000 list 4 times, best places to work 3 times. I was even EO president of EO South Florida for 2 of those years. It's been an amazing run. It's opened up so many possibilities for me. So that's the power of creativity. It's not just pixels and paintbrushes, like I said. It's about asking what if in the biggest moments of your life. And you might be thinking, all right, well, that's nice. That's nice for you. Cool story. Maybe it was a little inspiring. I hope it was. But that's not what we're here to talk about. What about you? We're here to talk about what this could mean for you. See, in all of this and being able to be a creative my whole life, I've really begun to understand something pretty unique about creativity. And that is, like I said, it's not about the art. What if you were already a creative genius and you just forgot? See, I believe that we're all creative geniuses, every single one of us. But along the way, as we've gotten older, we've just sort of lost touch with that. You're a creative genius. And imagine that you could tap into that creative ability at any time to help you go through any situation. That's what we're going to talk about today. So if you're interested in that, come along for the ride with me. Because what if creativity wasn't this rare or random or just reserved for artists? What if it was available to everybody? What if creativity was about looking at these moments where we don't really have easy answers to some of these questions? Some of these questions are easy questions, like what's for dinner? But it's a question we ask all the time. How do I write a better blog? How do I prepare for a better forum deep dive? How do I dream or feel happy? Or the really big ones, like how do I pivot my business? How do I become a better leader? How do I get closer to my kids? See, creativity can open up options for every one of those questions. It's a pathway to new possibilities, and you have that power within you. You might just not realize it. Because what if you could learn a system that would allow you to create an abundance of options and opportunities for any time that you were stuck? Would that be interesting to you? Well, why don't we talk about that today, right now? And I want you to understand why I believe. See, I've always had this idea, this belief that creativity was more than just art, but I really couldn't put my finger on it. But you know what? I've realized that a lot of other people have been looking at this also. And you know who believes this as much as I do? NASA. NASA does. Because in the 1960s, President Kennedy asked the American people and NASA to figure out a way to send people to the moon and bring them back safely. And that was a big problem to try to solve for. And so we assembled up to 400,000 people at one point working on that one problem, which was really a lot of problems stacked together, right? And so we were trying to move through these problems as fast as we could. And NASA realized that they needed even more creative people, even more curious and imaginative people in these rooms working on all these problems. And they couldn't figure out how to find those people. So what they did is they went out and they asked someone to help them design a test that would understand that. So they brought in this guy, George Land. George Land is a sociologist, and what he did is he designed a test to measure for creative genius abilities. And as a good sociologist, created a control group. So he started off with 5-year-olds. He took 1,500 random 5-year-olds, and he also took 1,500 of these really smart PhD, NASA scientists and engineers, and he ran them through this test. Here's what he found. 98% of the 5-year-olds passed as creative geniuses. 98%. That's basically everybody. So when he ran the same test on the NASA scientists, here's what he found. Want to guess? 2%. 2% passed as creative geniuses. This was astounding to George. He couldn't understand why there was such a big gap. So what he decided to do was keep the test running. He tested the same 5-year-olds again every 5 years. And here's what he found. By the time they were 10 years old, only 30% were testing as creative geniuses. By 15 years old, only 12%. And guess what? By the time they were adults, 2%. In fact, he continued to run this test on almost 300,000 people. The pattern was always the same. It didn't matter who he tested. So what did we learn from this? What did George take away from this? What have we all learned from this? Creativity is something that is not learned. It is something that we unlearn over time. We forget that we were once 5-year-old creative geniuses. And there's the data to prove it. So what I'd like you to do is ask yourself this question. How do we reawaken that creative genius within you? Well, I got a secret for you. You see, it's not what you might think. In fact, it's something really kind of unusual. See, to reopen your mind, you got to reopen your mind to the rhythm of play. You see, play is something that we have forgotten about. It's something we don't even know how to do anymore as adults. Well, play is where the magic happens when it comes to creativity. So you just got to get some swing on and get started. Like I said, creativity, it isn't rare, it ain't random, and it's certainly not just for the artists in the world. So what I did is I actually took all these things we've learned about creativity and I put a system together for you. Call it the What If Imagination System. I'm going to walk you through it right now. First, sanctuary. Sanctuary is creating the space for creativity to live in. Play is where we actually let the fun happen and let it rip. Amplify is where we build and expand and create more and more ideas. Choice is where we actually step back once we've done all the play and the creative work and then decide what was a good idea and what maybe wasn't. So there's probably a lot of bad ideas. And then we got to live it. So experience is where we carry it forward. So again, all of this is about this idea of making sure that when you are building all of these things together, you need to create space for creativity to live in. You need a sanctuary that all of this can live in. That's the What If Imagination System, and I'm going to walk you through each one of these stages right now. First is sanctuary. Sanctuary is kind of a strange word, right? It means something special, a space that is special. And that's exactly what you need to do to create the opening in your mind to play in. It's a protected space. See, you have to sort of signal to your mind that we're going to stop just doing productive, outcome-driven, get stuff done type of thinking. You actually have to intentionally stop and create this separate area, physically, in time, and in your mind, that you can play in. See, before your imagination can emerge, you need to take this refuge from urgency. We're always in this hardwire to get stuff done. We got to step away from that. You got to signal to your brain that it's safe to be calm, to be curious, and to be fully present. And lastly, you need to make sure that this is actually protected time. It's got a start time and an end time. Why is an end time important when you're doing creative play work? Because we have to fight against this bias that we're going to stop halfway through once we have one good idea that, oh, that's it, now I can stop. No, you just got to let it go all the way to the end. So make sure you create some dedicated time for this. So I'd like to do the little exercise right now to help you get in the mood of sanctuary, right? So let's practice. First, close your eyes. We're going to take a deep breath in and let it out. Then I want you to take your hands, cup them in front of you, and I want you to imagine an object appearing in your hands, something that just puts a smile on your face. Now, what's it doing? What's it look like? Why is it there? Who knows? Then, poof, what if? Now imagine there's something that you could eat in your hands. What's it smell like? What could it taste like? Is it a fruit? Is it chocolate? Is it something else? Maybe a steak landed in your hands. Who knows? And again, poof, now there's something alive in your hands. What's it doing? What's it sound like? So just come to your senses and use this as an exercise to just open your mind. See, when you create the space and the time for creativity to happen, it starts to open your mind. And that's a good way to just kind of kick things off. There's a lot of ways you can do this. The next one is play. And play is such an essential part of this whole idea of creativity. See, play is, the mindset of play is the birthplace of creativity. It's where it all kind of kicks off. See, when we're really playing, like we did as 5-year-olds, everything is possible. There is no wrong choices. Everything can go whichever direction it wants to go in. That's the secret. Permission to play equals the courage to explore without outcome, experiment without fear, and just laugh without any reason at all. It's not reckless. It's courageous exploration and creation. It's the open mode. In this open mode of thinking, curiosity outpaces caution, and joy invites curiosity. We just got to let it rip and have some fun. And no one has really encapsulated this better, in my mind, than John Cleese from Monty Python. Here's what he had to say.
Nothing will stop you being creative so effectively as the fear of making a mistake. Now, if you think about play, you'll see why. True play is experiment. What happens if I do this? What would happen if we did that? What if?
What if? See, when we're playing, everything is possible. Everything can just be fun. We can just move forward with reckless abandon. And I know that sounds a little scary as adults. And that's exactly why we've lost touch with our creativity, because we've forgotten how to just give ourselves permission to just play and have fun. But as we get into play, that's where something really interesting starts to happen. See, the best ideas really come when we amplify any idea. We keep going with it. We don't just take it when it seems like it's a good enough idea and we want to just start to get to work with it. What we really need to do is explore combinations. We want to explore expanding those ideas, looking at them in new ways. See, really extraordinary ideas come from the quality of work that comes from the quantity of work. The quantity of ideas is where the masterpiece ideas come from. You've got to just keep going. And that's why we want to create enough time in our sanctuary to give ourselves freedom to fully play. Amplifying means multiplying ideas, perspectives, possibilities, giving yourself enough time for your ideas to fully expand until something finally clicks. Then it's time to move on. The secret to this is just asking what if, and what if, or what if. Just keep exploring. Keep pushing past whatever that first thing is, not because you're trying to get somewhere, but just because for the sake of exploration. That's where the multiplication happens. What if we looked at this a different way? What if someone else was doing this? What if we did this in reverse? All of these different ways all of a sudden change your perspective and expand that original idea, whatever it happens to be. So that's the secret. So we want to gift yourself more options. That's the key. Because if you think about lucky people, if you really think about lucky people, what they really have are a lot of options to choose from. Right? They have the freedom to pick from all sorts of things. That's what makes them feel like they're lucky. Something just falls in their lap, but they were ready for it, right? You've got to have this idea that you have a lot of ideas to pick from. That's where luck happens. Now, you've played, you've amplified, you created this space, enough time for all this to happen. Then you have to choose. But only after you've done the first three things. Everybody wants to go to choose first, or somewhere in the middle. You've got to protect and make sure that creativity has the full freedom, and then you bring in the wisdom to choose. See, choice is where this divergent thinking all comes together with some discernment and lets us focus on what just happened. We can reflect back on it and then make a choice. See, it's about elevating something, not reducing something or getting rid of something, right? It's about not closing things down, but finding the way forward from here. So deciding which ideas deserve to be elevated and continue to grow from there. Oftentimes you'll find that when you do a creative exercise, because there wasn't an outcome in mind, you may not have any good ideas. That's okay. You have to give yourself permission to play either way. Only at the end can you decide whether there were good ideas or bad ideas, or something you could try again next time. See, if you watch how writers work, a lot of times they will set up specific time, a regular time, the same time, every day of the week to do their work. And oftentimes they'll report back that on one of those sessions, nothing good happened, but they still did the work. They still played with what they were writing on. But over the course of the week, they'll find some great ideas and the story will move forward. That's the attitude you need to bring when you're trying to do creativity. Because there's a neuroscience to this whole thing. And really, when you bring all of these things together, first, our default network, or our imagination network, as I call it, is where all the ideas are happening. But we have so prioritized in our culture and our society the executive function or the action network. It's all about results. It's all about getting things done. It's also the attention network. And that's where social media comes into play. But when we can find a way to balance all three of these networks in our mind, that's where great ideas get brought to life. Oftentimes, we're just so focused on getting things done that we never really see the good ideas. And when we can find a way to integrate all of these together, that's how you can really bring great ideas to life. So, experience is how this lives on, right? This is where your imagination becomes identity. It becomes part of who you are. It's about taking ideas and turning them into action over time. seeing life itself as a creative medium, learning how to express through action, testing, iterating, sharing, all of these things. It takes doing this work not just once, but on a regular basis. Make it just part of your life that you integrate. And you can do this very easily every day, right? There are all sorts of activities that let you integrate creative behaviors and thinking into your life on a regular basis. So it's kind of like going to the gym. We go there to be healthy. We need to do the same thing when it comes to our creativity. Whether it's meditation, doodling during a meeting, karaoke, maybe dancing, remember that rhythm? You always got to get back to that rhythm. Watching someone else do some creative work. Or one of my favorites, do something that you're likely to fail at. Or make a meal without a recipe. Any of these things help you ask yourself what if on a regular basis. The point is, just do something creative every day. That's the experience side of it. So in the end, all of these things come together. Remember, it's not a place to get to. It's a continuum. It's a loop. This is the space that creativity lives in. Sanctuary awakens the mind. Play opens it. Amplify is where we fill it. Choice is where we shape it. And experience is where we live it again and again and again. That is the what if imagination system. So, all that being said, it's important to know that creativity is not just for you and by you. It's an opportunity to play with friends. In fact, most times I've played, it's much better with friends, right? But it can make an impact beyond what you might even be thinking. So Google did this study a number of years ago called Project Aristotle, where they wanted to understand what were the highest, most important qualities of their highest performing teams. What could we count on every time to be a quality that would make sure that a team was highly performing? Here's what they found. So they created this project called Project Aristotle, looked at all these different teams, and they looked at all these different variants, experience of the team, talents of the team, skill sets, all these different factors. And what they came back with, it was the number one most important aspect of team success was psychological safety. Now you might be thinking, hey, what the heck does that have to do with creativity? Well, let's just talk about what the words that they used here. A strong team culture was correlated with each member's perception of the consequences of taking an interpersonal risk. Where high psychological safety existed, teammates felt safe to take risks around other team members. So just imagine that you are with your team and you actually start a conversation with a sort of low stakes, fun, creative exercise. All of a sudden, people are safe to take some risks with one another. They learn how to actually take risks in front of other people without judgment. So creativity can open up doors to some of the most important aspects of business and team success everywhere through psychological safety. It's just one more way of applying the power of creativity to your life. And I also want you to reflect on, this is from the World Economic Forum. Every 5 years, they've been doing these Future of Jobs report to really look at all the different aspects of where the economies and where jobs and skills are going. And so they came up with, as part of this, the top 10 most important core skills in 2025 for professional success. Number 4 was creative thinking. And if you look at the whole top 10 list, this is what they had to say with it. Creative thinking and resilience, flexibility and agility are also rising in importance, along with curiosity and lifelong learning. This didn't just come from employees, but also employers looking at what they felt their teams needed to be successful in today's world. So creativity is becoming a much more important aspect of our lives that is touching all sorts of domains that we can really make a big difference in our lives and the lives of those around us, including our families. And I know that what if every day you gave yourself the time and space to play without fear of judgment, expanding and combining ideas that you could take action on right now? That's the key, right? That's just implementing the system in a way that lets you really get the most value out of it. So are you ready to play? I mean, we're really going to do this? Yeah, we're really going to do this. So I don't care where you are. I don't if you're home by yourself or you're with some friends. Maybe you're here in a theater and you've got a few people around you. We're going to play together. Put this into work. Because for me, play isn't just an idea. It's an action. It's a verb. It's something to be active about. That's where you're really going to experience it. So if you're familiar with improv, I'm going to just help you understand exactly how this works. So in improv, it's a story that builds on itself. And everybody can just continue to move that story forward however they choose to. There are no rules outside of it has to move forward. And so every time someone's finished, you just say yes and. So when you're sitting there by yourself even, just go yes and, or what if? Just keep adding to the story. Now I'm going to give you a prompt to start in about 60 seconds to make a story for yourself. Ready? Here's the prompt. An entrepreneur opens a bakery on the moon. Ready? Let's begin. So just start. An entrepreneur opens a bakery on the moon. What could happen next? Yes and. Who's there? What? Tell me about the products. What could happen? What if? What could go wrong? What could go right? Just keep playing with this. There are no wrong moves forward. Just keep moving the story along. Just keep thinking about, hey, what if we did that? What if that happened? Yes, and maybe you want to start thinking about an end to the story. Something funny, something dramatic, something sad. Doesn't matter. Just keep moving the story along. Maybe if really ambitious, come up with a quick title. All right, thanks for playing. That was a little snapshot, but that simple exercise can lead to some really amazing outcomes. I just recently did a workshop and someone actually turned the whole thing with ChatGPT into a rap, and they performed it live on stage in front of everybody. It was just, everybody was dying laughing. It was hilarious. But it's not always silly. Can be. But oftentimes, we might be dealing with real problems, real challenges. What if the prompt was an entrepreneur needs to pivot her business because of an unexpected government policy shift? All of a sudden, it starts to feel like, whoa, we don't have time for play. Things just got real. I would argue that's exactly when you want to play. Because you could approach that same situation and start making a plan and start making decisions before you even have a good idea. And if you give yourself permission to just play, and your team has permission to play with you, you might come up with 30 great ideas. And one of those is a really fascinating way to get through that whole situation way faster. But you got to give yourself permission to really play first. Then figure out what you're going to do. So, I know this can be a little overwhelming and you don't know where to start. So I've just made it even easier for you. So if you want to just get started with this, every single day I'll send you a simple what if prompt to just help you get started on this rhythm of play. Just something fun, something simple that keeps you active in the conversation every single day. Because like I said, sometimes things are hard. This was just a couple years ago. I was driving with Lisa across Colorado, and I got into this place in my life where, I'd had the business for a number of years, but it stopped really being satisfying for me in a lot of ways. In fact, I was pretty depressed at that moment. I'd realized that my purpose in life was to serve with love and creativity to inspire transformation. And when I looked at my life, including my business, it really wasn't an expression of that at all. And I realized I had to do something. And so we played the what if game. What if we put everything in our life into hell yes and hell no buckets? And for the next 6 hours, we played fearlessly with that. We ended up coming back from designing a life that I am living today. And I'm giving you this talk because of that talk. That's what's possible with creativity. Because what if creativity wasn't about art at all? What if creativity was about the art of living? I invite you to live that life. Thank you.